you doing, brother? I haven't talked to you for a little bit.
I know. I'm good. I'm good. I took a little break from the travel and just sort of been in the lab, if you know what I mean.
Nice.
And
I like lab time, dude.
yeah, I do too. But there's that balance, right? There's that balance of y- or at least for me anyway, is if I spend too much time in one place, I then need the other place. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? To kind of
Mhm.
give you the juice and the ideas. And so anyway, it's second half of the years or that end of third quarter, fourth quarter, it gets kind of busy again with
Mm.
some travel. So I'll get my juice back, if you know what I mean.
Well, and you're big into conference season, right? I mean, you're at a lot of the events.
Yeah, we don't do as much as others. If I'm asked to speak or be on a panel or be involved in a like I will say yes to that almost 100% of the time. And almost selfishly because I feel like I get more out of it
Mhm.
by having to prepare and then being, surrounded by people where you've got some good back and forth where maybe you don't always agree. Um, but uh but you know, we don't we don't kind of budget for that from a marketing perspective. It's just not something Model Matches has done
I
a lot
get it.
of good, bad, or indifferent. I feel like let's just build the best thing and then, you know, I don't need, I'm not good at managing a booth. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Ascend Experience doesn't budget very well for all the events either, because that stuff does add up. But I
It
do,
does. That ROI is a tough one. I wanted to ask you as first of all, it's funny that I sent you an email not that long ago and said, "Hey, you want to do the podcast?" And you were like, well, it's about time you asked me. Like I've been wondering where you at. It's there's so many good people and there's so many people I love listening to speak, and you're definitely top of that list. And then you get stuck in the lab and you think to yourself, why have I not talked to Craig? Like even if I'm not recording it, I just
yeah,
wanna I just want to
yeah,
pick his brain. So I'm curious about something. You had a LinkedIn post here recently, and
yeah.
it got me. I reposted it and I made a comment. And one of the things you talked about was people kind of getting stuck
Mm.
in the way they've always done it or stuck in their own ways. We can get to that in a second, but right now, what is the thing you're hearing the most that is a pain point or a frustration? And maybe let me preface that by saying I'm talking to a coach right now. And so almost like talking to a therapist, which
Yeah.
quite frankly, you are a
I
therapist.
do call it business therapy for some people.
It is 100% some people, it's probably everybody. There's a
That's good.
therapy. So right now, what's the pain that you're hearing in those sessions?
Yeah. I mean, I think the common thread across the ground right now is people are feeling stuck and they're confused and they're trapped in the middle of this is what got me here and made me successful, but I don't know if that's what's going to get me there. And there's a lack of motivation. It's kind of like that fire in the belly. It's not out, but it's just sort of like kindling. It's not sparking. It's not
Mhm.
igniting. So I hear that a lot from people. Another common thread I find, I think in coordination or in a complement to that too, is I think people's identities have been maybe a little bit lost, through this shifting times and whatnot. And I'm gonna put it in quotation marks, when your identity gets challenged, or I'm unsure, or again, I'll go back to I don't know if what got me here gets me there, that adds to feeling stuck. What do I do? Can I do it?
Hmm.
What motivates me? And it goes back to that article I wrote. There is a shift in mortgage, and we're past the, oh, what happened? It's more about where's it going,
Mhm.
you know? And I think people are stuck at a crossroad right now. And do I have the strength to go get it? So I talk to people. That seems to be a common thread. Personal brand comes up a lot, so I do a lot around personal brand. And then of course, there's other things. Recruiting is a very common, probably one of the bigger pain points when I'm talking to my branch managers and executive clients. So, and the thing is, though, they all intersect. All of this intersects, whether it's trying to drive sales, ignite your marketing, your personal passion and fulfillment, recruiting. Well, I mean, it all comes back to why are you doing what you do? How do you connect that to others?
Do you find that that answer of why do you do what you do is do you get relatively consistent answers, or are they kind of across the board? I'm curious what you hear when you ask that question. And by the
I
way, I love that you do ask that question because
yeah.
far too often people are skipping to the outcome and they're not starting with the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I dig it, brother. And I like how, right? Because, and let's just take personal brand as just one of these frameworks, right? Well, I always tell people it's like it starts internally first. We jump right into this and personal brand. Again, I'm going to put that in quotation marks because that's even become white noise. Everyone's got to have personal brand. Well, what is
Mhm.
it?
Right.
And then I see all this common marketing out there. You're just regurgitating the same sort of boring corporate led marketing, but it's just coming from you now, not the company. That's
Mhm.
not it. It's got to start from in here first, right? And here's a fundamental belief of mine: people connect with people, not product. And so I'm really good at helping people shift that paradigm. So going back to your other question, common threads, right? I find that the first layer usually is a surface level, like what do I do, or what do I love and what I, what I love and what I do. I like to solve people's problems. Okay, cool. But what does that really mean? Is that really giving you the joy? Is that getting you up in the morning? And for many it is, but like sometimes you got to go a little bit more underneath that because there is a message in there. There's something people are connecting with you, want to connect with you about. We just have to like release that into the world, and then all of a sudden we get very clear on where we're going, why we're going there, and I'll frame this question for you. So I always love this, right? You've heard billionaires and all the people say, right? If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
It is.
And I'm here to say bullshit, right? Like,
Yeah, it kills me. Yeah.
yeah. Hey, I love barbecuing, man, but I ain't gonna go start a barbecue joint, right?
I
So
heard, hold that thought for a second. I
yeah,
heard Steve Harvey, the comedian.
yeah,
Um, he was on a talk show, and Steve's a bit of a motivational speaker also. He doesn't call himself that, but
yeah.
he says a lot of motivational quotes. And so this talk show host said something around, just encouraging kids to chase their dreams.
Hmm.
And if you do what you love, you find what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah,
And Steve talked about chasing his dream, and
yeah.
he made it. And he paused, and before he built on that, he said, "My problem with that is that you got to work on the way to accomplishing your dream. And also, sometimes you need a different dream." And his example was, if a kid wants to be a singer and they're a horrible singer, just horrible, you're doing them a disservice by saying, keep chasing your dream, right? So he was saying two things, which is sometimes your dream will change if you just give yourself more experiences through work and through effort. Um, but I'm with you, man. That whole idea of like find what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Maybe it's find the love in the work.
See, now and this is how I reframe that question because I think I mean, everything you're saying, right? Like it's really insightful. So what I do is I just turn that question around and say, okay, what is it in what you do that you love?
Mhm.
And that usually will kind of take people, that'll sort of pause for a second. Like, okay, like really just hone in on that, right? Because again, you're not always, listen, originators don't always love what they do, but there's something in there that they love about what they're doing.
Right.
So that's just a good little insightful question to ask yourself and to try to extract that because again, that's what we're connecting with. How we then apply that into recruiting, sales activity, prospecting, referral partner engagement, and all the other things. We just kind of got to get a little bit clear on that.
So you're talking a little about understanding, and I think saying things like understanding your why, that's been sort of,
Yeah.
but it is true. I kind of
Yeah.
hate, I don't like hearing it anymore
Yeah.
because you just
Yeah.
hear it so much,
Yeah.
but it is a fact. Like you do
Yeah.
need to understand like what motivates you, what gets you excited, what makes you feel positive
Yeah.
and feel
And you don't need
productive.
a fancy statement, it's not good.
Right.
It doesn't have to be
Well, I
but
remember somebody asked me that question once, and I hated the question. It was a long time ago, but I just thought for a second. And my kids were little at the time,
yeah.
and they were like, "What's your why or what's your motivation?" And my answer was, "I dropped my kid off at." And some people don't like it when you say kid. I dropped my child off at school this morning, And they looked at me and they're like, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, I talk to my children about taking certain things really seriously and working hard and being productive. And when you're at school, be at school. And when you're playing with your friends, play with your friends, but don't think about playing with your friends while you're supposed to be in math class. I says, if I drop my child off at school and have that expectation of him, well, I should have the same expectation of myself.
I love it. I love
You
it.
know,
And I love what you were saying earlier too, because I do want to emphasize, man, it's the whole like you're an overnight success 20 years in the making,
no kidding, right?
right? So be that overnight success throughout all the work and innovation. Innovation's another word I seem to be talking a lot about with people, right? And because we've had to innovate, throughout our life cycle and our businesses and our careers. Like we have to
Right.
innovate, right? And so what I discovered a long time ago, certainly in the development of my business, especially after reinventing myself, from being, my tenure in mortgage, sales and management leadership now into, entrepreneur and executive coaching and whatnot, that like innovation happens in the perseverance of an idea, not the
Mm.
idea itself. Like the idea might be the invention. So so really what I'm trying to say is keep persevering. So because that's when you're going to innovate and that's doing the work. So for many, again, we'll go back to some common threads. Okay, I want to be on social media. I want to do more video. I want to open up new business opportunities, new business channels with other referral partners. I want to adopt this technology. I want to recruit effectively. Well, we have to pursue that. We have to persevere in that, and we'll continue innovating along the way. And I think the challenge is we quite often will set a goal, we try to meet that goal, and whether we meet it or not, it's too much of a finite, experience, and it needs to be more of an infinite experience. Maybe to quote, Simon Sinek a little bit on that.
Man, I love that. I love that the innovation is in the it's almost in the pursuit, right? It's in the
Exactly.
perseverance. It's in
Yeah.
that's where the innovation is because you're right. It's sort of like and honestly, some of the greatest inventions or
Mhm.
innovations don't actually come from the idea of the end result. They come from the work. The work taught them the direction to go, and then the feedback. Like you needed the feedback. I need you. Yeah, I have a business partner when we started the software. He listened to Drew and I, who had all these ideas. We were
Yeah.
the whiteboard people, but we weren't SaaS guys at the time. And he made a comment at one point, which was, okay, it's time to stop talking about it. It's time to roll it out and go break it because we don't know what to fix until we get the feedback. We don't know what to innovate until we get the feedback. We can't always just think that we know what direction that this could go in. You so I want to go back to something you said earlier too, because I think it's a really interesting point, and that is, um, I know who I was up to this point, but now we're at a point, and I don't know who I need to be going forward. I would think that the people that even realize that you probably get really excited about because it's the ones that don't realize that either don't have the motivation or just have their head buried in the sand. And even if they hire you, they're
Yeah.
probably not going to get much from you. So that in a weird way, that must get you excited when you hear someone actually say, I don't know who I need to be going forward because what I did before isn't necessarily going to keep working.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps actually. I do.
I love it.
Like, because I mean, I truly love, helping people succeed, right? And like, when I always tell people, like, here's another perspective, right? Like you're in your business. You're in your business.
Mhm.
I'm on your business. So whether that is a very tactical approach to how do we drive business unique to you and pertinent to you, and again, because I have the tactical background and the technical background,
Right.
and again, it might be external towards your business and it might be internal. So I get different clients for different reasons, and that's where I've positioned myself so much in that, look, this is about your success and your design, not just some here's the same prescription for everybody.
Mhm.
And I think that's what separates me. So when you bring that up, it totally gets me excited, because ultimately, like, you have to want to pursue success. And it's that simple. If you want to pursue that, great. I'm going to help you, and we're going to get there, and we're going to succeed. Whatever that level of success is, or what that means to you. If you're just checking a box, there's other boxes to go check.
Right. Have you, this might be an interesting question. Have you fired a client? Have you said, "Hey, we're not good for each other"?
Oh, that is a good question. I've actually turned away a few people into a mastermind I'm doing right now. I've actually turned away a few people into that. And that's nothing personal in that. That was just a dynamic that I'm keeping it into this certain dynamic. I have told a client, hey, listen, right? We were talking about it earlier. Like there is definitely a business therapy component, right? Because some like it's lonely in leadership, right? I have owners, CEO, executive clients, branch managers. Like they don't have anyone to like walk these ideas out and create strategy. And so, and that can take on a whole level of, leadership management, communication. There can be business therapy within that. Well, I had
Right.
one client that I literally had to tell, like, listen, just for the record, I am not a therapist. Like you're going down some paths here that I just want to be very, very careful because I'm not going to cross that line. That's not me. That might be somebody else you need to go talk to. My job, I always tell the other thing I frame up in that sense where I'm about the windshield as a coach. I'm about succeeding going forward. And I think therapy is more about the rearview mirror looking backwards. So yes, we can look backwards to unhook some things, but that was a line that I was very clear to not cross. And
Yeah.
I've had other clients I just said, hey, listen, I think we've worked it out. You don't
Hmm.
need me anymore. So it's been more, I
Hmm.
haven't fired a client, but it's more like, hey, we did it. You know, for what you need now, you don't need me for.
You, how long have you had Ascend?
A year and a half.
Yeah, you will. You'll fire somebody. It's coming.
Yeah,
Trust me.
sure.
And actually,
Well,
I know that you will because I know who you are. Like I know that
mhm.
you're that type of person that. And when I say fire, I mean it's really not firing. It's like, hey, we're not good for each other. Like my model is not good for you. It's
Yeah.
this isn't going to be helpful. I've done it a lot over the years, but it's been it took that first one to realize how valuable it actually is and also how much respect you gain on the other side of it. Sometimes which brings me to this like recruiting topic. Because I think about when you say some of the people that come to you are I've it's worked to this point and I think I need to change something about myself, my processes for it to work going forward.
Yeah.
So let's do a Eric therapy session for a second. So the industry has seen me for years as a business development recruiter, something, whatever you want to call that. And before we started the software in 2018, that is what I did for close to 20 years. And in helping companies grow and expand, whether it be through acquisitions or introductions, mostly sales, some non-sales. But then we took this concept and we turned it into a SaaS platform that's really just business development in general. And one thing I've noticed is that I'm having a hard time breaking the perception of me as a recruiting specialist to a business development specialist. And so one of the things I have found breaks the ice a little bit with that, and I'm guessing you do as well, is starting with somebody wants to tell you what their problem is. I
Mm-hmm.
got a phone call today from someone we both know. He's already a model match user. His company, he's the president of a company, and he said, "I need help recruiting."
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, between you and me, Craig, I don't want to give him the kind of help he thinks he's asking for at the
Mm-hmm.
moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going through, and I said, "Well, tell me what the problem is." And he was telling me about pull through and top of the funnel versus the bottom of the funnel and all the stuff that I expected. And if I could just get the right at bats, that's what everybody said. If I could just get the right at bats, and so then we stopped, and I said, "When you're successful, quote recruiting, what's the outcome?" He said, "Well, we grow." And I said, "No, no, no. Be more specific. Like, what is the outcome?" "Well, we have more units and we have more volume." Okay. How
You
many
also have more
originators,
people.
which could be a problem, by the way. Like, if you're not careful, those people can create downward pressure on your P&L. They do in the beginning. We all know that. Um, so then my question was, if the problem or the outcome is more units and more volume, why not consider starting aim small, miss small? Can we do something to help your originators do one more unit? And then if you can validate that story, you can push that to other originators that might want to join your value proposition that helps them drive one more unit. What when you see those things happening, like I'm curious how you handle that, or you've gotten validating stories of sort of that concept of you've been using the wrong term for so long that you now think that term means something very specific, i.e., recruiting. But recruiting relates to the outcome of more units and more volume. And there's more ways to get that than just cold calling someone you don't know.
Dude, there's so much. I'm jumping out of my skin to talk about this. I'm I'm super like, and I'm doing a lot of recruiting coaching now because again, that is the highest point of pain for people right now.
Right.
And by the way, it always is. It's just because businesses are slower, and so either
Right.
branches, regions, or companies, they're trying to recruit their way out of this to increase volume. But to your point, that's not always the answer. And so this is where I want to distinguish a few things. Number one is growth and recruiting are two different things. And to your point, we've lumped the word recruiting into all of it. The only way I grow is through recruiting. Okay. Now, going back to growth and recruiting, we have to be very clear on, okay, what is the growth plan? So outside of the organic growth plan, now what is the new growth plan? Okay, where are you growing? Who are your ideal clients? Who are you trying to serve? What problems are you trying to solve? We have to get clear. And this is why I'm such a huge proponent of model match because so I have a 5-stage recruiting process that I coach towards, right? And the very first stage is insights. That's
Mm-hmm.
stage one. And so I promote using model match because one, you have to have optics, you have to have tracking, and you have to have insights. So quite often we start with, okay, well, what's the production and the units and the person and where they at? Okay, that's transactional. Are you looking at their social media? Are you getting to know them before you've even met them? Do you have aligned shared values? Are they someone that adds value to your organization? Are you someone that can add value to them? Have you looked yourself in the mirror? Are you recruitable?
Mm-hmm.
A great word I made up a long time ago. Are you growthable? Do
Mm-hmm.
you even have the scale and ability to bring on production? Do you have, so we have to do a lot of mirror checking first. Okay, let's assume all that is good. Going back to the point under insights, you have to be very clear on what are you offering? What pain are you solving for? Why should they join you versus somebody else? And are you getting clear on, because ultimately, as you move into the next stage, which is really connecting, right? That's our hunt stage. Okay. Are we just making a transactional cold call like so many in this business, i.e., just recruiters? I'm not putting anybody down. Great recruiters out there. I'm just saying, but the active recruiting, it's ugly, man. It's saturated. It's noisy. Everyone's getting 100 phone calls. Like that is not growing an organization thoughtfully, especially down to a branch level. And branch managers, they are so busy. You've got operations, you've got loan officers you're managing. You're trying to maybe grow your own production. You got your P&L, you've got to manage up into the organization. You got to run the branch. Oh, and by the way, you have to, it's like recruit or die. Like that pressure comes down to people.
Right.
So we have a lot of ineffective recruiting, and recruiting is just the action. That's all. It's just the action within the growth plan. So that's why I've broken this up and into the 5 stages so that we can look at what do we try and do in each stage, and so how do we advance. So it's a thoughtful conversation. And here's the other hard thing, man. I'm gonna say this real quick. Honestly, my belief, you have to slow down to speed up when it comes to growth. If we're trying to do fast recruiting and just get people on board, then we enter into the next question that I ask: is this disruptive or productive? And we all know the pain when we're just guerrilla recruiting, we bring people on, and that's disruptive, not productive to the entire engine. So going back to your president client, if they're just trying to increase units and volume by getting as many people on board as fast as possible, because that's what we think recruiting should be, like you're setting yourself up for some pain later.
Man, the slow down to speed up thing is so good. And it's so true too, because you're not, in this case, you're not selling a widget. You're selling the opportunity for a shared value add relationship that increases multiples and creates value both ways. And that doesn't happen overnight. And if it does happen overnight, there's usually a problem. And you'll figure out what that problem is, unfortunately, on your cost.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I heard a podcast with a exercise scientist that I like a lot, Lane Norton. And this is not new what he said, but he made a comment about what I like about him is that he mixes science-based, data, along with, how do you then take action on that data? So you talk about insights, right? Like, Model Match provides all the NMLS and real estate insights to put you in a position to then take action.
Mhm.
But he was talking about all these fad. He was basically saying, look, one exercise is not going to fix your problem,
Mhm.
and one type of food is not going to fix your problem. And every solution has trade-offs. I mean, that's usually how it works, right? But he started by saying, if you're 100 pounds overweight and you've tried all these various things, my first question for you is this: how long did it take you to become 100 pounds overweight?
Mhm.
You're going to have to be patient losing the 100 pound. What would make you think that the process of gaining the weight should be that much different than the process of taking it off? How you do it,
Mhm.
yeah, but the timeline might be a little bit different. So I love what you just said about slowing down to speed up. What about the fact that when you think about the word recruiting, look, I've given
Mhm.
presentations even before we started Model Match
Mhm.
that said my very first slide is stop recruiting. Like you
Totally.
just hired me to teach you best practices relative to recruiting. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is stop it. Stop recruiting. Now, I'm not saying stop making cold calls. I'm not saying stop in your outreach.
Yeah.
I'm saying remove that word because that word is already creating a negative in your mind. And if I have a room of 200 people and I say, hey, quick question. You just got a call from your manager, head of production. He's standing right over there in the corner, or she's standing right over there in the corner, and you got to recruit. How does that make you feel? Everybody's shoulders drops, their head goes down. They don't want
Like,
to make eye contact, right? So let's remove that. Now let's do a comparison. When you first started off as an originator, which most people that are managers did, not all of them, but most of them did, how did you start to build your book of business? Was your mom the best LO in town and just handed you her agent book? Probably not. If you're distributed retail, self sourced, referral partner based, how did you do it?
mm,
And 20 years later, do you remember the names of the first two or three referral partners that started sending you business? Everybody can remember. They can remember their names. They can remember what college they went to, what kind of car they drove, what vacations they went on, what sports they followed, who was their favorite football team, whatever. But you can't do that now in your own strategic growth efforts. And that's where something changed. Your rookie brain looked at it different than your vet brain is looking at it now. So that's number one. Number two, do loan officers hire external recruiters to call agents to develop a relationship between the LO and the agent? Have you ever heard of such a thing?
I actually have.
Okay, well, I haven't. So you can
There are
tell me.
services out there that do that, but again, I look at that and I'm like, is that the book of business you're going to build? Is like,
That's
because
right.
what agent on the other line is going to answer that? I go, oh yeah, no, I'd love to speak to your
The
originator.
one that hasn't done a unit in the last 12 months. That's exactly right. My point being, it's funny how quickly we go to this. I need to recruit, so I'm going to offshore that. I'm going to hire somebody else to do it on my behalf. When even though I've been the one that before Model Match built a very successful recruiting firm, I'll be the first to tell you there's no way any of us should be a better recruiter to you and your value proposition than you. The only reason that you should be doing it as an efficiency play to try to touch more people, to get
Mhm.
people into the pipe that you then need to go take over. And to your point, that's where data and insights has kind of started to solve that problem. You don't need to talk to 500 people. Here's the 50 that once you understand your value proposition and your minimum expectations, these are the ones to go take action on. And through the data, you can find something to talk about, a property detail, a borrower relationship, some whether you're recruiting a new referral partner or a loan officer. So anyway, I love your take on the slow down to speed up, but I don't have a lot of faith at the moment that that's catching on, except with younger people in this industry, which is what those that are hanging around this industry, you better look out for it. I'm telling you, dude, it's not AI. You keep thinking it's AI. You keep thinking it's tech. It's the people that have learned how to use the insights better than you're using it.
They don't have to unlearn old habits, right? It's that
Yeah,
whole thing,
great
right?
point.
And there's a
Back to
lot of
that
that
rookie
going around.
brain thing again, right?
Go back to rookie brain, and I'll go rookie brain again with you. Like when I first started my prior company, which was Pinnacle Capital Mortgage. I mean, now I'm aging myself, which is so funny to think about because I don't think myself old, right? But like in
We're young
2008,
guys,
right?
man. Come
Like,
on.
yeah, I know, right? I was the number one grower in the company. And here is why. Because I knew nothing about recruiting. I just went out. Like I always say, one of my superpowers is my ability to be ignorant. I don't know anything else other than just to go be successful. So I just went out and started talking and I was about to use the word recruiting, but sharing what I love about the company, why I think we're innovative, connecting with people, developing relationships, calling on them, all the different things. And I was magically growing faster than everybody in the company. And that was growing a P&L channel of business before really the P&L channel of business and the IMB network,
Right.
became really a big thing. So that was massive success. I've also had massive failure in recruiting. Certainly as my career grew into management and leadership, and then all the pressure comes down because now, and this, by the way, was before recruiting was a thing. I was just growing for the sake, because I wanted to grow.
Mhm.
Then now let's fast forward a little bit, right? Now every company's recruiting, it's recruiting, right? All of that really starts to heat up. Well, okay. So then I kind of pivot more towards it. Now I'm banging phones and doing the cold calling thing, and I'm just failing. I'm just failing. And part of that reason was it was not part of my natural being of how I connect with, people and how I naturally grow. So then I shifted back against it. Because I'm going to go back to what you were saying earlier. The word recruiting has become so demonized.
Yeah.
So recruiters, hey, like they can play the quantity game. Hey, here's 100 people we've qualified. Can you start making relationships and open up conversations? If you are a branch manager, leader, regional, executive, we have to play the quality game. So you don't have
Mhm.
to sit down and make 50 cold calls a week. You don't have to do that. Right. So we need to find different opportunities to make connections, open up, and there's strategies that we can do that with. So, and that's going to be within your comfort zone because, and I'm sure you know the same thing, right? Very I'm one of them, very highly successful. I ran all production for the Western United States for Finance of America before they shut the company down, right?
Mhm.
Very successful, right? In my own words, very successful branch managers, very successful regionals out there. We're nervous to make that phone call.
Yeah.
There's a lot, and so we have to change that strategy a little. We have to remove that obstacle. And I don't mean that you still have to make a call, don't get me wrong, but we need to remove the fear obstacle from that. And there's other ways, like I said, to make those connections. So the slowing down to speed up just comes back to let's just do it the right way versus we just have to attack it because that's how it's been getting done.
Well, I think partly the reason why you figured this out though is you weren't afraid to just attack it. And so you did. You attacked it with no intelligence on how you were attacking it, and then you
Right.
figured it out along the way. Okay, you just said something I want to come back to. You said you said you still have to make a call. Okay. So for the sake of this next question or topic, let's agree that that call isn't just a branch manager that needs to maybe add LOs to their market because their market's big enough to handle more, originators than they currently have, or a regional that wants to open up in a market where they don't have a presence, or a loan officer that to hit their goals needs either another referral partner or more market share from their current referral partners. It's
Yeah.
all the same thing. So, okay, devil's advocate. Craig, why do I have to make a phone call? Why can't I just use text sequencing and drip marketing campaigns?
So let me ask you this then. If that's what you're going to do and you were the receiver, let's say someone's trying to recruit you on board with them, is that going to get your attention? Are you going to consider that high value? If someone's trying to recruit me to the organization, am I going to respond to just some recruiter? And again, I'm not putting anybody down. There's great recruiters, but just as someone dialing for dollars, I'm not going to respond to that. But
Mm-hmm.
if Eric, you call me and you're the branch manager and you're the leader and you have interest in me, and oh, by the way, you know something about me. You happen to see one of my posts and I'm a Niners fan and you're bringing up something about the 49ers or something else. You have a little bit of familiarity. Okay, I'm going to listen. Like when I shifted, I had at least, I would say about a 95%, I call it a conversation rate.
Mm-hmm.
On that cold call, 95% of the time, I had a conversation. About
Somebody,
5% of the time, I got the no thanks, leave me alone.
yeah. So somebody at least picked up the phone. You were able to engage them.
And I was able to engage a conversation. And whether that conversation was 3 minutes or 30 minutes. I engaged a conversation.
Yeah.
Now, to qualify it from there, I would say at least 65%, because I tracked all of this, was a genuine, open conversation, not a closed conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So again, and here's how I help remove the fear obstacle. When you're making that initial phone call, we've got to flip our expectation. You are not calling to close a deal. You're calling simply to open a conversation. And then again, all of a sudden we're reducing and removing obstacles, right?
Yeah.
And so this is
Yeah.
how we start making some connections. And then where does it go, right? So, and then again, we have strategies on how to do that. And so by kind of breaking this down, so that's why I look at growth. It's very process oriented. It's also this is a village. It's a village. This is not lone wolf. And so what I love doing is leading like mastermind, like recruiting masterminds with a group, right? Let's not go at it alone. Let's do it together, right? And so and I find so that's where I was very successful in recruiting. And then I failed in recruiting, going back to I'm just gonna start banging phones. That failed. And then I became very successful again when I slowed down, thoughtfully worked the process. Now I have optics. Now I can track. I have insights. I'm connecting with people. And now all of a sudden, I'm not calling 50 people. I'm calling 10 people,
Yeah. Right.
you know?
And your conversion rate went up. So you can only call 10 people, but they're 10 targeted people that you have something in commons and something that you can talk about, something that you can share.
And here's
And
something else. Let me just interject real quick.
yeah.
So remember when we first started, you said, leave your email on. We might have it. You might get an email. We'll talk about
All
it.
right, here we go. What'd you get?
Check this out. I'm going to promote my boy here. So while we're talking, I just got a phone call from this guy, Jason. He just called me on the other line.
Yeah.
I met Jason at my prior company because I was in growth mode and I cold called Jason, who was at a different company. I was trying to recruit him. So exactly what we were just talking about. I called him, opened up a conversation. We had a nice conversation. And so since then we kept in touch. So here we are 2 years later. And he was I called him the day to say hi. He just called me back to say hi. That's all. Just as a friend,
Two
just as
years
a
later.
friendship.
Still
And that
2 years
was
though.
all
Yeah.
out of a cold call.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad that it just happened. Here's something, just a thought to throw out that I have found at least resets people's brains a little bit. So when you're talking to the manager that keeps using the word recruiting, I've been
Yeah.
trying to for years come up with a different word.
I'd love to join you in that quest.
Let's figure it out. I mean, business development to me seems like it makes the most sense, or relationship development, or something along those lines. But as the manager who is now saying I have to grow,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to make cold calls, and a couple things. Number one, I would argue that the hesitancy to making the calls, it's easy to say you don't want to do that because you're Mr. or Mrs. Successful and you think you're too good to have to make cold calls now. I don't think that's really it, though. I think it's a confidence thing, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you. It's a preparation and confidence thing, and they're not slowing down to become
Mm-hmm.
prepared, to
Mm-hmm.
have the preparation that provides confidence to then go make a phone call. But here's another one. Reverse engineer it for a second. When you, Mr. or Mrs. Manager, sit down with your loan officers that you coach, that you support, that you mentor, what are the things that you coach them on when they say, hey, Craig, I'm doing $1 million a month in volume and I want to do $1.5 million?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you probably sit down and do two things. You look at your current referral partners and figure out where can we pick up market share. And then you look at, let's look at the data. Where are there some other referral partners that play in a similar space, similar geography, similar product mix that maybe we could go develop relationships with? And then you tell them to do what?
Well, and actually, where I'm first going with right now. Sorry, you're asking me a question. I was about you wanted me to answer it a certain way.
I'll rhetorically, you make a phone call. Now you have the insights, you have the people, you have the names, the contact information,
Yeah.
the social. You're telling your loan officer, here's the 5 agents that you need to now go call. And if you convert one out of the 5, you will get to that target that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But you yourself aren't willing to go do the same things anymore.
Bingo. And so I was going to answer that question, but in a little bit, maybe more the coachy way, right?
Yeah, the better way. Go ahead.
Well, no. I'm going to say the optimized way,
Okay.
because loan officers, branch managers. Remember I was saying earlier, like so I view the branch manager as one of the most pivotal roles in the mortgage business because everything pivots off their desk,
Mhm.
right? So when you add growth and recruiting on top of it, again, it's just sort of like, and this is very big. Okay, so in that same frame with originators, right? Are you only reacting to your day, or do you also have proactive time in your day? And so I coach towards like your optimization zones. So again, look, you can fit it into your day, but you can't play whack-a-mole management. And I'm gonna quote Bill Dallas on that. He's always say whack-a-mole. So you have to define what what are your proactive zones throughout the day, and then one of those proactive zones should be growth if that's one of your objectives. So therefore, for that 1 hour, you are all in on growth. Okay, now what does that mean? Now, some of that is making phone calls, but the other thing is that's not the only part, right? And so we have to draw insights, we got to make connections, we got then have to do discoveries, enhance, advance, and those are the kind of the 5 stages I was talking about.
Yeah.
So for again, branch managers, regional, it doesn't matter who. We have to optimize our time and our day. So going back to your originator example, yeah, agreed. We might even be able to cultivate and grow organically as well. Are you purposing towards that organic, call out, reach
Right.
out, opening up new business and whatnot? So sometimes we do have to get into, because again, what got us here and we're successful, we can sometimes get a little bit complacent in our success.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I spoke in front of a group not that long ago and found out before I went up on stage, like an hour before, that there were 4, 5 people in the room, loan officers, that had qualified for this sales rally, and they were there, and they'd only been with the company for like 14 months or something. And by
I
the way,
love it.
introduction to the business, meaning they're rookies in the industry.
Awesome.
And so I started doing some research, and through model match and the data, I could see that all of them had done at least 14 million in volume over the previous 12 months production. Now keep in mind, there had to be several months there early where they weren't doing any production because they had no relationships and they didn't know what they were doing, and they couldn't even spell LOS probably, but none, so I was really intrigued by that. And I called them out. Like when I was on stage, I just say, I don't know you, but give me the 2 or 3 things that you feel like were the reasons for your success. And I told the group, like, get ready because they're all young. So there's going to be some amazing social media, technology, AI, chat GPT answer. Like, this is going to be amazing. Everybody, hold on, buckle up. And the answer was, I identified who I was, I identified people that matched who I was. I reached out, I followed up, I followed through, and I converted.
Isn't that amazing though? Because again, we're talking about the shift in mortgage, right? And going back
Yeah.
to like, it's not rates, it's not AI, it's not even tech. And so then, because I was talking to one client, he's like, well, I'm just old school and this is how I've always built success. Okay, that's cool. I'm not saying to let go of
Right.
these things, like the core competencies,
Yep.
right? So it's, but we have to be cognizant of where we're shifting. And part of that reason is because the consumer is shifting and
Right.
competition's response to that consumer is shifting the business. So we've got to skate to where that puck is going.
Yeah, great Wayne Gretzky quote. I think about that. I think about that all the time. You can
Yeah,
overshoot, you can undershoot, you can get distracted. And what these loan officers were saying, they weren't saying that tech and new tech wasn't a big part of their daily
of course.
processes and plans. That's not what they said in their 15-second elevator pitch of why they were successful.
Yeah.
It was the combination of the old school blocking and tackling that
Yeah.
still works in
Yeah.
partnership
Yeah.
with the things that create the efficiencies. It doesn't take you 3 weeks worth of cold calling to figure out who are the 50 people you should touch base with. It's now you have data and insights and technology platforms like Model
Yeah.
Match or others
Yeah.
that can help you identify literally in seconds. These
Yeah.
are the 50 people or 25 people that if you don't have a relationship with, at a minimum, you should.
Totally. I remember like, I mean, not that long ago, before Model Match had insights, for example, okay, who am I going to reach out to? I'm trying to open up a new territory, all the stuff, right? So how do I go get insights? I'm like on like HUD's website trying to download
Right.
like loan officer, like you
The
have no
advertisement on the
insights.
park bench.
Right. I'm like, oh, okay,
Right.
Scotsman guide, but
Right.
again, being clear on who I'm recruiting. I'm not recruiting the whales. That's not who I want. I want the middle 60. because I'm really good at helping the middle 60 become top 20,
because you know
you
who you
know?
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, yeah.
with the few minutes we have left,
Yeah.
what didn't we talk about that you want to talk about?
I mean, I think we covered a lot. I mean, I love we talked about this a few times, just the slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
We all have this including me. I mean, as in you, right? Like we all have this urgency, like we have to be always in urgent mode.
Yep.
Urgent mode isn't necessarily in important mode, right? Like what's urgent isn't important and what's important isn't urgent, that sort of thing. So I think there's a level of just, let's just take a breath. Let's just ground for a second. And I think it's really, really important, especially right now, going back to what you're originally asking me. We have to work on your business because right now, I believe is extremely opportunistic. We have the NAR settlement happening now. We have, interest rates are fighting their way
Mhm.
down. I think these headwinds are starting to open up a little bit. Like we have some rocky road ahead, but I think we can all see where we're going now. Okay. So when, as a prior P&L leader, for example, one thing, and this is applicable to everything, I would say in your P&L strategy, for example, but I want everyone to apply this to their success. You want to be positioned to protect for the downside,
Mhm.
and you want to be positioned to maximize on the upside. Right now is about positioning to maximize. So we got to get your marketing right. We got to get your personal brand right. We got to get your social media strategy right. We got to get your growth plan in place. We got to get your optimization time during your day going. We've got to get you feeling good and driving towards success so that fire is stoked, not by me or somebody else. It's internally you're plugged into the wall, not into a battery, right? And that is something that's what I love about working, with one of my, with my clients. I was about to say one of my clients, because you brought this up earlier about, rookie loan officer. She's 14 months into the business. She is outpacing in production the 20-year veteran sitting next to her.
She's also investing in her business, having only been in it for a short period of time.
Right. And I'm working with her, and I'm not like, this is not revolutionary stuff. Like, again, here's the singular prescription. What I'm helping her do is lead her business versus just plugging into, do these 10 things, right? She's
Yep.
developing everything we're just talking about. She's visible, she's out there, she's putting herself out there. And sometimes it's because she doesn't know anything other than to just go be successful. So I'm helping guide that success, right? Again, one of my greatest superpowers, be comfortable in your ignorance.
I love that. I love that. You and I need to do some panels together or something.
I'd love it, dude.
We could have
Yeah.
some fun. We could have actually just sort of counterpoint each other, even if we don't believe our own counterpoints, and it'd be a good time. How
It'd be fun to play devil's advocate with each other that way.
100%.
Yeah.
How are you taking on new clients?
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
people find
So
you? Like, yeah.
yeah. Go to my website's probably the best way to find me, ascendxc.com. I mean, you can find me on the socials and all that, ascendxc.com. And when you ask, am I taking on new clients? Yeah, I still have private clients I'm taking on, and what I'm doing more of now, and I really love it. So I just started a branch manager and leadership mastermind group, and that
Mhm.
is an invite only small group. If someone's hearing this and they're interested, just reach out. But the other thing that I'm starting to lead is now group mastermind for recruiting, right? And I really think that is the best way towards recruiting success. Is whoever those key growth people. I'm not talking about the recruiters per se. I'm talking about the branch managers, the regionals, who is that team, and everyone wants to grow, and then leading, within that. And so I really love that group coaching, that group kind of mastermind format. And so I am looking to, I have room for about one, maybe two more of those if anyone's interested in that. But yeah, I think that's exciting. That's again, we're positioning to maximize on the opportunities ahead, but we got to get going now, right? Not
Yeah.
later. So
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on. We should do this again. We could cover several hours. I mean, there's lots of topics we didn't even talk about, and you have a killer perspective. You're a super positive guy, which I love, but you're also not afraid to just call out when it needs to be called out, if you know what I mean. Like call out the BS, call out when someone's not doing the things that they need to be doing, and don't I'm going to kill the recording here in a second. Don't go anywhere so you and I can catch up a little bit. But if there's anything I can do for you, ask. And at that, thanks for joining me on the podcast, my friend.
I love it, man. Thanks for inviting me and look forward to more.
Yeah, and by the way, killer hat. I want one of those.
Yeah, thank you. I'll get you one.